Welcome to Cardano Epoch News for Epoch 397, brought to you by Sci-Fi Pool. We bring you the top stories from Cardano and beyond from the last 5 days. Coming up in this news roundup, the Cardano community is suddenly wide awake and staring Voltaire deep in the eyes. Why can't we vote directly without delegated representatives, or dREPs, they cry. I look at some of the responses to this, as well as the questions that remain in the dREP debate. In a similar vein, Charles Hoskinson opened the CIP 1694 can of worms in an impromptu Twitter space where he answered critics who think IOG is sneakily wrapping its tentacles around the sacred power centers of the Cardano blockchain. It's a good one, so stick around to hear the main points that were covered. In NFT news, EMOJI handles created a FOMO not seen since a group of people convinced everyone that number handles under 10k were the new Beanie Babies. Our last NFT story is the controversy surrounding the so-called rug by Rogue Galaxies, an ambitious sci-fi MMO or massively multiplayer online gaming project, which had to dramatically prune its plans because it ran out of money. For all the details on this epoch's top stories in Cardano, watch the video all the way to the end. And if you enjoy our videos, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an epoch, and stake your ADA with Sci-Fi Pool. Let's get into the first story. Suddenly, something shifted in our midst this epoch. There was a Cambrian explosion of people suddenly giving a shit about Voltaire on Twitter. As though the collective consciousness of the Cardano community suddenly woke up and was like, yo, what? As it dawned on people that simply holding ADA is not going to get you a direct vote in Cardano Governance if CIP 1694 passes in anything close to its current form. People were angry, felt betrayed and misled. But this is great because now we're talking and we really need to talk. This info has been hiding in plain sight in the CIP, even as far back as Summit 2021. But nobody ever really listens to Charles unless he's being cute with JJ or the legendary Tamara. Anyway, nothing was hidden, but people's eyes opened to the reality of the situation. To have a direct vote in the Cardano MBO, we will probably have to become a delegated representative or dREP, which will cost an undetermined deposit. Some of these dREPs will be our political class, voting on our behalf, with the power of the ADA that we delegate to them. In a decent Twitter space dedicated to dREP specifically, Rick McCracken pondered how much this deposit might be to achieve its aim of not overloading the blockchain with thousands of dREPs, and yet allow people to participate as dREPs if they wish. And even with such a fluid system where ADA holders can delegate to a new dREP every epoch if they want, how will they ever really know if their dREP is just phoning it in, doing the bare minimum, and not even reading the proposals? And if it's as liquid as it looks right now, what would the payoff be for a dREP to invest time in a deep understanding of proposals, if the revenue earned from doing so can be taken away at the whim of ADA holders, swayed by the constant cancellings and outrage of the Twitter current? We're adding a trust requirement with dREPs, trust in people's judgment and character, and we degens hate to trust. But nothing's settled yet, and it's a fascinating entanglement of power, trade-offs, good intentions, and protecting against greedy vampires who are ready to vacuum the ADA out of our shared pot. Stick with it, stay aware and engaged. It's not often we get a chance to witness the birth of a system of governance. Savour it. Addressing some of these concerns, and also trying to open up a broader conversation, Charles held an impromptu governance Twitter space on Saturday. Here he talked about Voltaire, Cardano's governance era, and the Cardano Improvement Proposal, or CIP 1694, which will form the basis for governance if ADA holders vote in favour of it. This CIP deals with protocol level changes that are necessary for the members-based organisation to function. Charles started the space by talking about why he would not be talking about the invite-only Voltaire Workshop held at his Longmont offices just a few days earlier. The recordings and transcripts are in the process of being condensed and formed into a neat package to keep everyone on the same page, and make sure nobody forgets anything or misses an important nuance. Reading between the lines, participants have been asked or told to keep their mouth shut until the official materials are ready to be distributed. This was criticised later in the space by NodeShark, who said that the workshop had been shrouded in secrecy, and he even compared it to the World Economic Forum meetings in Davos. And he wasn't alone in wondering why IOG had hand-picked participants for the workshop at very short notice, rather than opening it up to the community. Charles explained that IOG had realised that they would have to lead the Voltaire discussions in order to ensure greater community participation. Less than 1% of the community participated in the GitHub discussions on the CIP. This week's workshop was a prototype, with a representative group from the community, Charles said, who will now roll out similar workshops in other countries over the next 2 to 3 months. Charles is especially interested in hearing the opinions and ideas of the non-English speaking segments of the Cardano community, whose voices are often overlooked. The workshop process will hopefully culminate in a closing workshop and produce a candidate CIP for ratification or voting. Responding to critics who are unhappy with the way CIP 1694 has been rolled out and who don't feel their voices have been heard, Charles assured us that we're in the very early stages of this process and nothing has been decided yet. He also urged the community to approach the discussion in a fact-based and systematic manner and understand the trade-offs that are necessary when navigating a hard-to-change system with a lot of moving parts and different vested interests. A point that Charles really wanted to get across in this space was how the tripartite MBO model would work. The MBO balances liquid dynamic democracy, he says, in the form of delegated representatives or dREPs, with a constitutional committee, which is like a kind of upper house. It can be compared to the US Senate, he says, where members have set terms and are around for a while. Constitutional committee members don't have to hold ADA, so this also acts as a counterbalance to the plutocracy of the one ADA, one vote system. But a structure like the Constitutional Committee needs some rules or guiding principles to uphold, and that's where the Constitution comes in. This will enshrine the non-negotiable values of the blockchain and will be hard to change. The final group in the MBO to have a say are the SPOs or stake pool operators, and they will be able to vote on important decisions, which makes sense since they already have to agree to upgrades, which only happen if 70% of the SPOs decide to update. There were a few questions about Project Catalyst in the space, and Charles said that it had originally been an innovation fund and was not intended to snowball into a governance function. Charles also said he was sad that only about 10% of ADA holders participated in Catalyst at its peak. In the space, NodeShark relentlessly poked at Charles with his so-called trident questions, including asking why legitimate criticisms of CIP 1694 have been dismissed as FUD. Charles replied that debate is fine, but untrue claims such as the idea that IOG is trying to use Voltaire to seize control of Cardano don't even merit discussion. NodeShark also seemed keen on the American Revolution model of governance for Cardano, a framework emerging from the grassroots rather than being dictated from IOG from above. But Charles quickly reminded him that the revolution in question was orchestrated by a small group of relentless and passionate individuals, just like the ones that will hopefully attend the Voltaire workshops. Adam Rush asked an interesting philosophical question towards the end of the space. Why on earth would IOG voluntarily give up power? To this, Charles talked about one of his heroes, George Washington, who did something radically unexpected by resigning and going back to his farm when London expected him to declare himself king. Washington wanted to leave behind something great, something the world had never seen before, and something that would transcend the individual. Similarly, Charles says he wants Cardano to transcend and benefit everybody by being the financial operating system for the entire world. This is reason enough for Charles to hand over the reins to the community, he says. Leaving Voltaire now and going on to the NFT scene, Emoji ADA handles created a bit of a feeding frenzy this epoch, with people racing to grab something they thought the next person might pay a bit more for. The emojis are encoded into the handles using puny code and are not officially supported by the ADA handle platform at this time. The innovation came from Handle Tools, which is a separate project. And Conrad from ADA Handle said that the project had not researched how to officially support puny code yet, but would like to support the emoji handles that have already been minted. He also said that once personalization and sub-handles have been rolled out by the team, they will look into formal emoji support for handles. And the popularity of these visually appealing handles prompted several Cardano dApps to roll out support, with NFT marketplace Plutus.art leading the way, and JPEG Store following suit along with Hazelnet. Another NFT story that got a lot of attention this epoch was the Rogue Galaxies announcement. After a long period of radio silence, the team said that due to not selling enough NFTs, they have no money left and will not be able to deliver the grand vision and promises that were made at the beginning of the project, which was actually only 84 days old at the time of this announcement. The team will develop the game, which was meant to be a gigantic sci-fi MMO with deep lore and focus on gameplay, into a standalone game, which will then not be added to. No more NFTs will be sold, and the team will use their own money to make this standalone game. They won't be working on the project full-time anymore, and probably won't be doing much beyond trying to keep the IP and the community alive, however that will work. Many Twitter users called this project a rug, and were especially scathing in their criticism since Patrick Tobler, founder of the popular NMaker minting platform and Cardano OG, was involved in the project. Many of these critics accused Patrick and Rogue Galaxies of rug pulling the project. Others said the project had simply failed and was making the best of a bad situation, or that it had just been badly run. This is exactly the same discussion as we've heard many times before, with Ardana and Orbis or with Flicto. When is a rug really a rug? Since this is Web 3, where we make up narratives as we go along, your definition is as good as anyone's. And finally, some data from the Cardano blockchain. Sort of. This video is already too long, so I'm just going to give you a recommendation this time around. If you haven't been on eutxo.org yet, just to mess around and throw blocks and assets around, then have a go. It's surprisingly therapeutic, and you can see what NFTs are floating around in a chaotic and unsystematic manner. You can also see which pool validated the block and other fun stuff. I just love the way this is done. It's somehow fun and practical at the same time, and honestly very relaxing. We'll be back with some more serious data next epoch. And that's it for this epoch roundup. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. And whatever you do, don't leave your ADA on exchanges. Support the security of the Cardano network and support single stake pool operators like us, Sci-Fi Pool. There's a link in the description to our pool where you can stake your ADA if you want to support our work. See you next epoch.